Hello, this is Niswander, and you're watching the NOWMAN show. Joining us today is the activist, filmmaker, author, and speaker, Greg Reitman. He's the founder of Blue Water Entertainment, and he's produced films including Hollywood's magical island, Catalina, Fields of Fuel, and that film won the Audience Award at the 2008 Sundance Film Festival. His latest film is titled Rooted in Peace, which has been screened at numerous festivals, including the Hollywood, Montreal, Buffalo, Impact, Fiji, and the esteemed Sedona International Film Festival. Greg, welcome to the NOWMAN show.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Doing fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
So, what we're going to do first is watch a trailer of the film. This is Rooted in Peace.
I heard this word enlightenment, and I wondered, does a human being have this potential?
Since the beginning of time, we have been at war with ourselves and our environment.
Everything we do is violent.
If we don't talk about what war does, then we carry it forward.
Why is peace so difficult to achieve?
It's business. There's a market for this.
Here we are at the E3 show.
Violence is a preventable disease. We're not born violent. Our culture teaches us how to be violent.
Does the public understand the nuclear issues?
One button push away from blowing the whole place up.
The atom bomb didn't wake people up about warfare. The devastation of the natural environment has not woken people up about environmentalism.
It was time for a change.
If you want to change the world, start with yourself, be a good example.
I met the legendary folk singer Pete Seeger.
I'm glad that I live in a country where we can disagree without trying to shoot each other.
When I met the Beatles, what we were searching for was an understanding of the unity of all. And then Maharishi appears in our lives.
Kind of like you're on a spiritual safari. Creativity and more energy and clarity, that sounds like something everybody could use.
My mind was awakened, and now, heartfulness.
I met Greg. He took me off guard and he said, "So, are you dating anybody?"
Her love opened my heart.
Just put this on your earlobe.
I was on the path of personal health and consciousness. But how does our health relate to global awareness?
You cannot separate yourself from the world.
There's two competing food systems. There's agriculture and there's agribusiness.
We've had 80,000 new chemicals introduced into our environment.
We are depleting our natural resources at an incredible pace.
We have to understand that this planet is one life support system.
As we continue to destroy the very fabric of life, I had this crazy idea I was going to save the world by planting trees.
We think tree is not a part of our body. If the tree exists, you exist. If it perishes, you perish.
We are one ecosystem, we are one humanity.
How about your bonsai tree?
Cool. We can be human only together.
When you experience the transcendent, negativity starts to lift away like bright light of peace radiating.
Peace is a state of existence, and we certainly can get there.
If the forest is to be green, every tree must be green. If there's going to be peace on Earth, everybody has to feel that quality of peace.
By becoming one with the world, we'll become one with each other.
Individual transformation is global transformation.
All right. What a great film, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. What inspired you at the very beginning to make this film?
Post 9/11, I think everything changed in our country. And I found myself at the JFK airport with a bottle of water. And within, I would say, 4 minutes, I had about 5 TSA agents around me.
Wow.
Basically saying, you need to give up your water, you're going to be arrested. And it really had a profound impact to me.
Wow.
And at that moment, I started to question America, our freedom, our civil liberties. And obviously, I didn't want to get arrested, so I gave up my bottle of water. And as I turned to the right, I saw these two women wearing this harich, around their faces. And I realized they weren't going to get on that plane, that they weren't going to make that flight. And I realized what was happening in our country in terms of racial profiling, in terms of how fear affects us and how it charges us, and what we don't know and how that affects our mind. And it was at that particular point where I started to think about creating a film called Rooted in Peace. And it reminded me of my time in Israel during the first Gulf War, where I really saw what fear looks like, where every woman that walks into a grocery store or a food store or a pharmacy, they're looking at their bags, they're checking their bags, and it's a constant of fear, and no one wants to live in that kind of world.
The airports were that way too, right?
The airports, everything within the Middle East is that way, particularly within Israel. And so you have a very charged, polarized society, and I was sort of seeing the infancy of that happening in America 9/11, and I was like, we don't want to go that way. We don't want to live in fear. And a fear state, is not conducive to a healthy, vivacious America.
Absolutely.
And so that was really the inception of wanting me to make the film.
You brought trees into it, obviously, because of the concept of being rooted in peace. That's the connection to the trees, right?
Well, the trees were really born out of a nightmare. Funny enough, when I came out of Hiroshima, I came back when I was in Hiroshima studying in Japan, and then visited Hiroshima. I ended up 3 weeks later being back at my college at UMass Amherst, and I had a nightmare, and all of the experience of wearing the gas mask, and the horrors of a mother having to explain to a 5-year-old child why he or she needs to wear a gas mask. And this idea that came out of my head was the idea of the giving tree rooted in peace. And at that particular point, I was in college, I was a university graduate, and I thought I was going to save the world by planting trees. Which is very interesting, because I think when you go through a post-traumatic syndrome, the idea is it becomes very sort of polar, where it's death and life. And where you see death, you see life. And the tree really became the inspiration of life. And the idea of holding something and nurturing something and really understanding how important it was. But I don't think, in terms of the journey, in terms of the film, in terms of the trajectory of 30 years, I really understood the meaning. I think the meaning of the tree sort of changed.
Yeah, so you had an even greater appreciation than when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, in college, it was all more like hippy-dippy, let's plant trees, which is the way the university kids sort of treated it. Like, what's the importance of trees? And for me, I was a big, Al Gore, activist, and read his first book. I even thought he was going to come to my campus at UMass. Really? How he envisioned these things.
Deepak Chopra mentioned in the film that the military, is actually it's a business, and that becomes normalized.
Deepak, I think, alluded to, but I also think the person that you're mentioning was Joseph Cerrone from the Plowshares Funds, and how it becomes just a state of mind where it's just transactional. And I don't even think we realize it's not billions of dollars, but it's trillions of dollars.
Yes.
And the idea of the insanity of why we'd want to create these rock piles of nuclear warheads for the justification of what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if we attack, then they attack, and then what do we have left?
That's
So I think that's really what becomes sort of even more important now as we look at Donald J. Trump, coming into office, and him saying, "Oh, we want to rebuild our stockpiles." For what purpose?
Yes, and the budget just passed on the NDAA was for $611 billion, which is not out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Going forward for 2017. So, and this is supposed to be normal. This is supposed to be.
Well, it's not normal. It's basically dehumanized, and
Exactly.
really what it is, it's probably job creation in different states like Virginia, North Carolina, where those factory workers are, and there's no accountability. We really haven't made the shift from an old paradigm to a new paradigm, and really all it does is just take leadership. It's just really the understanding. Which again, like the life and the death paradigm, it's the same thing with energy. It's old energy that goes, we're extracting versus new energy that's abundant, that comes out of the sky like the sun, the solar. That's free. I mean, even now, solar has become so exponentially cheaper than any form of energy on the economy.
That's right.
That it becomes a question of why. Why aren't we doing that?
That's correct. And I know there's a scene in the film where you go to the EU The E3.
E3, yeah.
E3 convention.
Yeah. The game convention, the video game.
We're not talking about Brexit yet.
Now we're going to Europe.
Yeah,
right?
we're not going to Europe. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so what was it about the E3 that you liked? And
well, I have to ask you, did you ever find a peace game?
No,
game?
there is. You know what I found afterwards, after the emergence of our film and after it came out, you know, is that I think Deepak Chopra is working on a peace game. But
he is.
Yeah,
oh,
but
cool.
I think that in the true sense, you know, games, there's a hero and there's a lot of killing, and I think we're not really thinking about what we're creating, and we can be super creative. I mean, that's the thing about what makes America great is our innovation. Right? So the idea of innovating something and creating a game, and it could even be like the pearls of wisdom where, you know, you go on this trajectory to learn how to become the great Buddha, you know, and looking at what are the confrontations and the conflict in terms of reaching those goals. But we really haven't come to that understanding of, one, to realize what games are doing to our kids, how it affects their brains, what kind of war culture we're creating. And at a certain point, something needs to give. And I think now, I don't know, it's about 47 people get shot every day in America.
Yeah, seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the idea of like, it pops up, there's a gun, you know, 10 people, and truth of the matter is, what's sad is that it doesn't really become personal until it's your family or your cousin or your sister, and that's really where this dehumanization has occurred with us, you know, this sort of this ultra reality that we're living in, which hopefully will change.
And speaking of change, isn't that like on an individual basis? Because did you find that peace within yourself is where you had to start?
Well, I didn't know that. I mean, like, you know, for me, you know, when I heard the word, I mean, peace within, change begins within, these were all just, you know, hyperbole, so to speak. Like, it never really resonated. I didn't come from a 1960s generation where, you know, meditation was sort of the norm. For me, that was sort of my journey, which I think was so authentic, was the idea of realizing that everything wasn't changing, that everything wasn't working, and what could I do? And it was at that particular point when I got invited to go to Fairfield and go to Maharishi University.
That's in Iowa, right?
In Iowa, and hear the Beach Boys play live. It was really the emergence of me really learning for the first time who this person was, being Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and really understanding what transcendental meditation is. And for me, that was really profound because, one, I never had a mantra. Two, I never really understood how to activate a mantra internally. And three, I didn't even understand what the benefits were.
Well, for those who may not know, first of all, there's several questions right there automatically. You know, what is transcendental meditation or mindful meditation? And what is consciousness?
Well, I mean, you're asking, you know, I actually have a thing on my website where I ask the wisdom leaders, and we kind of lay that in, those kind of questions. I think, first of all, transcendental meditation, first of all, I'm not a guru, and I'm not a wisdom leader, though I will be an author soon.
Yes.
But what I will say is TM, or transcendental meditation, is a mantra that's, you know, that goes deep and profound, that's repeated over and over again, that is, I guess, creating these theta waves. And a mindfulness technique is more like a guided meditation where you have someone and they're guiding you in a 20-minute meditation. And what I will clarify is these two different types of techniques do different things on a conscious level within our brain. In other words, they affect our cellular level in a different way. In terms of consciousness, you know, consciousness for me really is in the simple sense, is a sense of awareness, to become aware of oneself, to become conscious.
For those who may not know what a mantra is, what is that?
A mantra, I guess, is a repetition of a sound or a syllable that's repeated over and over again, that's given to you. And I guess there are 1,000 different of mantras, and they do different things. I remember, for example, when I met Amma, the hugging saint, they were giving out mantras. So, so one of them I wanted was I got the Ganesh mantra, which is the removal of obstacles.
Wow.
You know, so for me, I thought that was a very important, you know, mantra, because as I was doing my film, I could see tons of obstacles in the way, and so I would, you know, that was one that was given to me.
So it can be words, it can be...
It can be words, it can be sounds. And in truth, these are sort of vestiges where they're held by these, I wouldn't call them sages, but people that hold truce for thousands of years, that are sort of wisdom leaders. And when you go to them, there's a transaction that occurs, there's a blessing that occurs, and then there's a way to receive that as well.
Now, I had a meditation teacher that wore this T-shirt, and I kind of used what was on that T-shirt as one of my mantras, and it's meditation is not what you think. I always like that. It's always stuck with me. Getting back to consciousness, because I think that's a very fascinating subject, because I know back when I first started studying and practicing some of this stuff, most people would have thought you're a little weird if you're using that word, right?
Absolutely.
And now it's like it's part of the vernacular when you're looking at, let's say, at least alternative spirituality.
Well, it's grown.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like I was mentioning previously, even the term rooted in peace. Now if you look at speeches by presidents, I think Barack Obama did one 8 years ago, and he had the word rooted in it 10 times, and I was just starting my film, and I was like, wow, look at, but he never said peace. He said rooted in goodness, rooted in love, rooted in hate, So I think that in time, as we grow and we evolve, what becomes sort of trivial becomes now more sophisticated, and I think the word consciousness has really grown. I think we have a deeper awareness of what consciousness is.
Yeah, and I think it's more than just it's many things. It's everything.
It is
because it can manifest into a form. It can also be a thought. It can also be an idea.
And it also could be the interconnectedness of the universe.
That's right.
Which again, for a lot of people, that all might be hyperbole when you say the interconnectedness. I don't think, and I think that's part of the journey of Rooted in Peace, is really to really understand our interconnectedness between ourselves and the natural world. And I think, that sort of higher truth, and that comes forward, because the tree isn't, as Ananda Giri in the movie says, it's not in us. Right. However, we are the tree, and if the trees die, we die. And,
that's right. And
we don't really understand that interconnectedness of life and how special life is. And I think that's part of the consciousness.
And there's a quote from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in the film, if the forest is green, every tree has to be green.
Yes.
So in other words, does that mean not even one tree can be brown, right? It all has to be green. All has to be alive and vibrant to be a green forest.
Absolutely.
What actually committed you to meditation? What was it that got you committed to that process?
Well, one, it was a very interesting time for me. I had gone to Fairfield with Donovan, the singer.
The musician, yes.
The musician for the and he wanted me to go for the David Lynch weekend, and he was performing there.
Great.
And so it was really.
Was Mike Love there too?
No, that was after. We
went
once, and then we went again in December.
Great.
And I went by myself, and when I went there, with Donovan, who really wanted me to come, and he wanted me to meet David Lynch. So after I did my interview with David, one of the things that David said to me, and I keep in mind, David Lynch is a great film director.
Right, exactly.
So, after the interview, which was a great interview, he says to me, Greg, how is your meditation? And he didn't even know that I wasn't meditating.
Oh, wow.
So for me at that moment, I was, in my question, in my inquiry, I was asking everything about meditation and what it does and all the benefits and what it had done for him. And like anything, when someone tells you that it's going to make you feel better, it's going to make you sleep better, you're going to be more active, you're going to be more alert, you're going to be healthier, why wouldn't you want to do that?
That's right.
So at that moment, I had the opportunity to get my mantra, and it really was more an invitation. But in retrospect, looking back, I think everyone should have a mantra. We should all learn, how to activate our brains, in a way that serves us, because that's really the inner divineness that we all are seeking, and it's all available for ourselves.
But you also connected to people that were environmentalists and nutritionists, like the son of Jacques Cousteau, Fabien Cousteau. Fabien, okay, sorry.
Yes.
And then Deborah Garcia, who was the wife of Jerry Garcia.
And and I also interviewed Paul Hawken, who wrote Bustin' and Ras, and William McDonough, who's the #1 green architect in the world, and Lester Brown. I came from an environmental, background when I made fuel, so we had interviewed a lot of the great environmental thinkers, and there were some that were not interviewed that I had the opportunity to come back to.
Well, I noticed that I think it was Deborah Garcia that said that we share DNA with trees. Is that true?
Um,
Literally?
I don't know if she said that or not. I don't recall that. I think she was more, maybe. I think she was more talking about the GMOs and the impact of about GMOs and the idea of, you know, what is it that we're doing to the DNA of trees?
Yes, exactly.
And the idea of, you know, changing the DNA of a tree is an unhealthy thing to do, and changing the DNA of our food source is an unhealthy thing to do. And in retrospect, Europe has already passed laws, which again is very interesting because at the time we made the movie, Monsanto, you know, is not bought by Bayer.
Yeah.
So Europe basically said, you know, we're not going to buy Monsanto, and so Monsanto's new strategy now is, okay, well then we'll just get acquired by Bayer, which every company in the world buys Bayer, aspirin.
Yes,
so, you know, very clever, we're a very clever marketing machine in America.
You go briefly into what I would consider solutions, which is what we like to really delve into on this show.
Sure.
And Costa Rica
is
an example, I think, of what ecotourism can do. And I've always been fascinated by, you know, like even Iceland, you know, they have ecotourism businesses, and you get there and you learn like, oh, this wind can be used to create energy. You know, that's part of why they want tourists to come. They want them to learn these things. And you mentioned terms like biodiversity and natural capitalism, and you even mentioned the global commons, all interesting topics.
Well, I don't think I mentioned it. I think it was more Jose Marie Figueres, who was the former prime minister. Well, I mean, I think what he's doing is he's breaking it down in terms of air and water, and really what Costa Rica is, you know, in terms of as a country creating a peace dividend and deciding that they're going to abolish the army, and that they're going to focus on what a real peace dividend is, which is really how government serves the environment. So taking money where at one point the farmers were so poor and they needed, you know, and then taking that money and so that they could actually grow trees.
Exactly.
So I think it's really a way, the idea of natural capitalism, which we don't really think about, which is such a simple thing. All it is from a financial point of view is just saying that there's a value of what nature provides and putting it on the balance sheet. And, you know, and before, you know, most corporations don't put it on the balance sheet. And some have now. I mean, if you look at most corporations, I think like JetBlue or other organizations, they have like head of sustainability where they're actually factoring in now, you know, the cost or their footprint of their carbon.
In the making of this film, what was your greatest takeaway, you think? What did you accomplish?
I think the greatest value it had is to experience other people who watch the film who are not, I would say, in a good place, not in a healthy place with their family or their loved one or with their health or their nutrition, and seeing how the film serves them. And I think that, you know, we have a very unhealthy America right now in terms of our obesity, in terms of how we're managing our carbon footprint, and how we're dealing with our food and our nutrition. And I think this is sort of like a philosophical film that makes it very simple and very digestible in a way where you can walk away and you can sort of connect the dots and realize that life really isn't that complicated. It's really simple. You know, eat healthy, organic food, don't eat processed food, you know, get good sleep, you know, go on a hike with a loved one, listen to some music, maybe not drink so much, take time for yourself.
Maybe some herbs, antioxidants. Look
Antioxidants.
at the labels on your food.
Yeah, all the simple things that we're always in a rush. We're going, and we're not taking the step back and just say, hey, wait, what am I doing? How am I doing this? Who am I doing this with? So I think for me, the greatest takeaway is watching people really transform. And I've seen, like, you know, people who are like 40 pounds, 50 pounds overweight lose 40 pounds within, like, you know, 6 weeks.
Yes,
so that's profound.
That is profound, and you know that light bulb goes off.
Yeah, like I've seen people walk out of the theater and they're really red, and or in some cases, which is a very troubling scene, where people will see remove the mercury, and a lot of people have mercury. I think that's probably the hardest scene in the movie. I've heard a lot of people say, you really need to cut that scene out.
Why?
And exactly. No, that's because they don't. You just said it so perfect, because they don't want to deal with their truth.
Yes.
Because the reality is that's something that's inside, that's been put in there, And now they have to start to question their dentistry, why it's been put in there, what is it doing to your body. And really, the truth is, every country outside of America doesn't put mercury in one's mouth, but, but we still do it in America.
To this day.
Till this day. Well, I don't know. I think we don't do it till this day, but what we don't say is that it's a health problem, and we don't ask the dentist to remove it. And which is even more important is how we go about removing it.
Where are you going from here? And you're working on some other projects?
You know, I'm really just taking the time and just really, like, every time I make a film, I tend to, like, not just run and want to go make another movie, which I probably should do.
You should go with your inspiration.
Yeah, I really just been really enjoying the film, and it's been playing. It's going to the Conscious Expo.
Excellent.
In February. It's going to ASU, to the Sustainability Festival in Tempe, Arizona. It's going out to Fort Lauderdale, Gainesville, Florida, at University of Florida.
Great.
At the Cinema Verity Film Festival. So it's still playing.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be a lot more screens that it'll continue to play on. And I'm also working on my book, which, you know, I need to finish by May. So that's sort of like, you know, I'm really just wrapping that up, you know.
That's based on the movie?
Based on the movie, but more like a how-to.
Wow.
You know, really
Great.
sort of pulling the things that we couldn't say on the screen that we can put in a more palatable way to help people, you know, get on their path toward peace. We did our annual event in Central Park last year, which celebrates internationally of peace, which is called Make Peace with Nature.
Oh, yes, yes.
And we had a human aerial art, which was really
Excellent.
amazing. So we had the people literally, you know, laying on the ground, making the words "Make Peace with Nature,"
that's great.
and then we were all inside the tree. And this year we're going to do it again in Central Park, and with an artist that I can't really announce yet. So that's one of the big things, you know.
Is that on the west side of the park or the east side of the
It'll
park?
be on the upper west side of Central Park at the Great Hill. So I'm actually moving, you know, as not only as making content, but also doing live event production, which I really like. The idea of pulling people together and producing live shows.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll work together on something at some point.
Absolutely.
I love live shows. That's where I started doing stuff. So.
Yes, a lot of fun, and a lot. And I also think what's important is that most people still today don't even know that there's an International Day of Peace.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
and
most
we
people,
can help promote that.
Yeah, so most people don't even know that, you know, that it's a day where we ask the world to stop their violence, to really think what they're doing. And in terms of my own activism, it's not the traditional sort of peace in terms of guns and fires. I'm asking people to make peace with nature.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you,
Greg,
Dan.
my pleasure. You've been watching the NOWMAN Show with my guest, Greg Reitman. Until next time, be here,